You're listening to the Telltale channel. Don't forget to check me out on all social media: Patreon, Twitter, Teespring, and Etsy. All links can be found in the description or on my website, telltaleatheist.com. I've been keeping you guys updated on Jerry Falwell Jr. for a while now. Well, a new story broke about his less than reputable personal life. Let me just say for the record, I don't give a shit what his kinks are. It makes no difference to me. He's free to do whatever he wants as long as it's legal. But this guy is the president of Liberty University, started by his father, Jerry Falwell Sr. And as president of Liberty U, he's ruined people's lives over something as simple as being at a party where there was alcohol, even if they didn't drink it. He's supposed to be the leader of the moral majority in America. Turns out, to nobody's surprise, he's a giant fucking hypocrite. Jerry Falwell Jr.'s pool boy recently came out and said Falwell enjoyed watching the pool boy sleep with his wife. So what? It's just one guy. Could have been made up. Except, this isn't the only instance of it. Turns out Jerry Falwell Jr.'s wife would befriend her kids' friends, fellow Liberty U students, so she could sleep with them too. I read some of the descriptions of what happened, and there's honestly no other way to describe it but rape. They were over 18, so it wasn't statutory. They were in their early 20s in most cases. But they're Liberty U students. They're barred from taking part in premarital sex, drinking alcohol, and a number of other completely absurd and self-destructive policies. In one case, Falwell's son's friend woke up to find Becky Falwell, Jerry's wife, in their room, pushing herself on him. It was wrong. The whole thing is wrong, and probably crosses out of creepy and into illegal territory. But since the victims probably aren't going to come forward and press charges because of the social backlash, she'll probably never face charges. The sad part is that Jerry Falwell knew about all of this and encouraged it. He wanted it. He'd sit in the corner and watch it. This is the son of the guy who said God caused 9/11 because he was angry that LGBT people exist. Was there ever any doubt these people were charlatans? Some good news coming from a U.S. Court of Appeals. They recently ruled that schools can't block trans students from using the bathroom that matches their gender identity. This is a pretty big deal and honestly very surprising. According to BuzzFeed News, written by Zoe Tillman, quote, in a 2-1 decision, the court rejected the Gloucester County School Board's argument that a policy prohibiting transgender students from using the bathroom that matched their gender identity was needed to protect student privacy. She goes on to quote the majority's ruling, written by Judge Henry Floyd, an Obama appointee. Quote, how shallow a promise of equal protection that would not protect Grimm, which is the student, from the fantastical fears and unfounded prejudices of his adult community. The board implemented a policy that treated Grimm as questioning his identity and having issues, and it sent him to special bathrooms that might as well have said Gavin on the sign. It did so while increasing privacy in the boys' bathrooms, after which its own deposition witness could not cite a remaining privacy concern. We are left without doubt that the board acted to protect cisgender boys from Gavin's mere presence, a special kind of discrimination against a child that he will no doubt carry with him for life. So there's a bit of good news. According to a U.S. appeals court, trans students can now use the bathroom with which they identify. And all that being said, honestly, if I were trans, I think I'd probably rather use a private bathroom because society isn't at a point yet where we don't have to worry about them getting the shit beat out of them. This is one step in the right direction, but we still need to work on improving public perception. The level of bullying trans kids go through is completely unacceptable. Bullying in general is unacceptable, but it hits a new level toward members of the LGBT community. It needs to be addressed desperately. Our best buddy, bonus Bucket Jim Bakker, had some interesting things to say recently. He said, quote, I'm scared for America. I really am. I want to warn America. We've got a few more days to stand up. It's going to be too late after the election, I believe. I think if we elect the wrong people, and you see how wrong it's been, we're going to have a revolution. The church people are going to march in the street and realize they've gone too far, and we can't let the murder of babies lead the way. We can't let people burn America. We can't let the rebellion take over. This is not going to be a nice place to live. What? It's not going to be a nice place to live? Like future tense? I don't know, Jimmy B. I think it's a fucking horrific place to live right now. Donald Trump did a fantastic job of outlining everything that's wrong with America right now. Streets burning, race riots, 100-year pandemic ravaging the country, and it's been covered up. The economy is tanking harder than the U.S. has ever seen before. Worse than 1929. Only Trump said it's all Joe Biden's fault. bizarrely. As far as I can remember, Trump's been president for the past 4 years, not Biden. This is Trump's America, not Biden's America. I want to bring an end to the wanton destruction. Oh yeah, I know the stock market looks good right now. Let me briefly explain why the stock market is better than ever, while GDP dropped by 32.9% and unemployment has been between 15 and 30% for the past 6 months. It's because Trump had the government basically buy controlling shares of major stocks. The company could be completely failing, but their stock value is through the roof because the government dumped trillions of dollars into it. I've been following lots of economics blogs. Since the government did that, we technically don't live in a capitalist economy anymore. It's effectively functioning the same at this moment, but who knows what's going to happen as a result. Buckle up. It might not seem possible right now, but it's going to get uglier. We need a change. Bottom line, this is Trump's America. I don't want Trump's America anymore. It's a living nightmare. Pastor Rick Wiles went on TV and prayed for God to muzzle Hurricane Laura. So what happened? Did it work? Let me read a quote from the late, great George Carlin. Here's something else, another problem you might have. Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine, but if it's God's will, and he's going to do what he wants anyway, why the fuck bother praying in the first place? Seems like a big waste of time to me. Couldn't you just skip the praying part and go right to his will? What's the use of being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck up your plan? This week on the podcast, Scott Adams, creator of the Dilbert comic, Mensa member, and renowned atheist, released a video recently describing all the secret signs he found pointing to the fact that Joe Biden is possessed by Satan. He builds it on 3 pillars. First, Joe Biden says he wants to bring light to the darkness. California is dealing with wildfires right now. Coincidence? Second, he says Satan lives underground, and basement dweller Biden, Trump's nickname for him, tells us that Biden lives underground too, just like Satan. Coincidence? And finally, he says, if you take the J and the O from the name Joe and lay them on top of each other, it looks like a 6. If you flip the E upside down, it looks like a 6. If you take the B from his last name and you put a 6 inside of it, you'd never know. That's 666. And the last 4 letters of his name, IDEN, that stands for identity. 666 identity. Coincidence? Kenneth Copeland, my favorite demon in disguise, was on a radio show recently and said if you don't vote for Trump, then you're guilty of murder, or blood guilty, as Jehovah's Witnesses would call it, because of the abortion issue. But weirdly, he completely overlooks the fact that almost 200,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. alone in the past few months. As far as I'm concerned, you can't sit here and call yourself pro-life while shrugging off 200,000 deaths. We're going to listen to the clip in full and see what else he had to say about it.